All right, welcome back to another episode of the Unqualified Independent Podcast. My name is Wyatt Ramsey, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a deep dive into U.S. illegal immigration. Illegal immigration has been a hot button topic in the media recently due to the expiration of Title 42. Especially here in the U.S., we receive a lot of immigrants every year, and so I just want to do a little bit of a dive into what legal immigration and immigration in general looks like here in the United States. So to start today's video, we are going to define illegal immigration. This definition is according to the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services. So this comes directly from the federal government. I found this on a federal government web page, and this is their definition of what illegal immigration is. I just want to set this record straight because some people have an idea of what illegal immigration is or isn't, and that's part of the argument surrounding illegal immigration is what exactly it is and who deserves to get into the country, how they do it, all those lines. So, legal immigrants are foreign-born people legally admitted to the U.S. Undocumented immigrants, also called illegal aliens, are foreign-born people who do not possess a valid visa or other immigration documentation because they entered the U.S. without inspection, stayed longer than their temporary visa permitted, or otherwise violated the terms under which they were admitted. So a good example of this is a lot of people who illegally immigrate to the country come on travel visas. So similar if you were to get a U.S. passport and go to, let's just say, the U.K., you're allowed to stay there, I believe it's 30 to 90 days, something like that, before your travel visa expires. People will use the travel visa to travel to the country and then stay in the country and start working here as an immigrant. And technically, due to U.S. law, that is illegal. Another great example of this is when it talks about legal admittance to the U.S. is not going through the proper ports of entry. So what we're looking at right now, with the Title 42 things going on, is people literally hopping the border fence and they come in, right? When you go through a legal port of entry, that's like a traffic stop or other places like that, that's how they start the immigration process. You know, that could be the green card process, or that could be a U.S. citizenship process. And the reason why this is important is part of the background or part of the process of these people going through these ports of entry is background checks. So, again, you don't want just everybody coming into your country. I know that this is an independent podcast, but there's a lot of bad people out there, and I don't think that it should be a controversial statement to say that you don't want just anybody being able to walk into your country. When we talk about things like 9/11 and other domestic, or not domestic, but terrorist activities, those people get in because the proper background checks and things like that are not followed, and that can lead to terrorism and other things like that. So, when we talk about background checks and admittance, I just want to be clear. I feel that this is a standard procedure that every country needs to do because you don't want anybody just walking into your country. All right, we are going to kind of shift gears here. We're going to talk about border encounters in the U.S. So these are legal and illegal. These are the border encounters from 2020 to 2023. These numbers come from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection's government page. So I just want to make sure, again, you guys know where I'm getting this information from because I'm not just pulling it out of my butt, I promise. So, 2020, there was 458,000 encounters. 2021, there was 1.73 million encounters. Now, at this point, I like to point out Joe Biden was elected as president. And we did see a large influx of immigration. If you compare the numbers to when Donald Trump was president versus Joe Biden, there was a large influx of people who were trying to get into the country. When we look at 2021 to 2022, there was 2.378 million encounters at the border. So that was an increase over 2 years of nearly 2 million people that are trying to cross our border. That is a lot. And then 2023, obviously, it is still May, I would like to point out, and we already are on pace to break the 2022 number at 1.223 million. All right, so immigration in the media recently. One of the things that I would like to do on this channel is do some commentary on both sides of media as to how this is getting covered. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to play a clip that was recently from our White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. I hope I'm saying that right. Alright, so this is press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. This video is from the New York Post's YouTube channel, so this is just a quick 45 seconds.
He has tools that he's used to make sure that we do this. We actually deal with the immigration system in a humane way, and in a way that is that actually deals with what we're seeing at the border. And that's why you've seen the parolee program be so successful. When it comes to illegal migration, you've seen it come down by more than 90%, and that's because of the actions that this president has taken. But we know that more action needs to be taken. So it has to be legislative action. We're going to continue to call Congress to do that. And so this is important to this president on day one.
All right, so very quickly, with the numbers that we discussed earlier, I would like to dispute the claim that Karine Jean-Pierre makes in this address to the press. So she claims that illegal migration is down by 90%. Now, considering the fact that the numbers that we discussed earlier in this video, we have seen an increase every single year in just, these are border encounters. So this is legal and illegal. When you look at those numbers, those do not include the people that the Border Patrol does not encounter. So I think it's a relatively logical flow to assume that if your number of encounters is going up, that your number of people that you are not encountering is also going up. So when we talk about this number 90%, first of all, anything decreasing by 90% is probably unlikely, especially when it comes to things like the border. That is a large number. But when we look at the actual numbers of people that we have encountered at the border, they have gone up every single year. I really don't understand where Karine Jean-Pierre is getting these numbers. Slight tangent here, but when we talk about the press secretary and who is somebody as a representative of our federal government, probably the primary representative of our federal government, I don't think that your job should be having any kind of misleading statistics. I'm going to be honest. I think the number one problem when it comes to mistrust with our politicians right now is the fact that they do lie to us on a regular basis. I mean, you can look at these numbers yourselves. I would encourage anybody watching this video to go and look these up. But as a representative of the federal government, you would think that, you know, regardless of your political stance on this issue, which, again, that plays into the polarization of our politics and the fact that everything has become political, you would think that the position of press secretary, your primary job would just be to give the U.S. people the facts. And this is why people don't trust the government. I mean, this is a simple flow of logic. You know, when you look at these numbers, there's no way that illegal immigration is down by 90%. Now, I would like to point out, some of the people in that very room, especially a man by the name of Peter King, also asked some very, very inflammatory and biased questions toward Karine Jean-Pierre. Again, slight tangent here. But they do, I think, that allows the media to portray her in a way that seems a little bit more biased than she possibly is. But veering back to our original topic of illegal immigration, another big incident that we had recently in the media was a man who crossed the border into Texas. This man has been deported 4 or 5 times, which the fact that we do not have a confirmation of an actual number of how many times this person was deported from our government is quite ridiculous to me. You know, people have this idea that the government is the all-seeing eye, and the fact that they don't even know how many times they've deported this guy, and the fact that he keeps getting back into the country is quite ridiculous. Anyways, this man was on his property in Texas. He was firing an assault rifle, which I don't see that that's particularly relevant to the story. But a neighbor asked if he could stop firing his rifle during the middle of the day because their newborn baby was trying to sleep. Obviously, any of you who have been around any kind of guns know that, yes, they are loud. There's a reason you're supposed to wear ear protection when you're using them. So, you know, you're just being a neighbor. You know, we all have loud neighbors. You ask your neighbor, hey, can you keep it down? You know, my kid's trying to sleep. So naturally, this guy's logical reaction, just in case you needed a reminder that there was terrible, terrible people out there in this world, he went and killed 5 people. 5 people. Because his neighbor asked if he could stop firing his gun during the middle of the day. Now, one of the recurring themes of this channel is going to be people's intentions with weapons are what kill people. I'll be honest with that. You know, regardless of if you look at, you know, Europe, where they have completely banned guns, people still find ways to hurt other people. You know, there's a reason that stabbings are actually a very big issue in the UK. But when we look at, like, the border, and when we go back to this process of, you know, there's ways that you get admitted into this country, this is the reason, is so that we do not have dangerous people like this man who was deported 4 or 5 times and is obviously a violent and disturbed individual, that we do not have those people in our country who are killing people. I mean, this is a terrible, terrible story, and it really breaks my heart to, you know, talk about the fact that there is people out there that are unfortunately being slaughtered by people who are not supposed to be in this country. You know, part of our Border Patrol's primary purpose is to make sure that these people are not getting into the country and, you know, hurting our citizens or trafficking drugs or things like that. So, talking about Title 42, this is a COVID era policy which essentially allowed the customs agencies to use COVID as the primary reason as to why they were deporting them. So this was actually, in my opinion, a very good thing for our government, because when we look at some of the numbers, we had a large influx of people trying to come in, and we were able to just turn them away and send them, you know, back across the border, or keep them here in facilities where they were detained for a short amount of time and then sent back to Mexico. Because this policy is expiring, it was not renewed because none of the COVID policies were renewed, the U.S. actually sent 1,500 active duty service members to the border recently. And the thing about this is I want to talk about like on the flip side, we talked about Karine Jean-Pierre, who is somebody on the left. We'll talk about the right-wing coverage of the news media and the fact that they are saying that, oh, well, this is a gigantic crisis, and we're having to send 1,500 active duty service members to the border, and, this is unprecedented, and da 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 da. This is actually a fairly routine thing. When we talk about the military helping out the U.S. Border Patrol, this has happened on a multitude of occasions. So when we say, like, we try to blame this on, Joe Biden, and it's like, oh, it's his mismanagement of our border policy and the fact that, we are just drowning in immigrants, which is partially true, but I think that the right-wing attack on the federal government for deploying the troops there, I think is actually somewhat misleading, and I really don't understand why that seems to be the narrative in the media today. Alright, so, switching gears again here, we are going to be talking about why immigration into the U.S. is important, and especially illegal immigration. So, similar to what I talked about earlier, with the man who decided to shoot his neighbors, we're going to be talking about a few big things that are happening because of the influx of immigrants. So, human trafficking. It's a hard topic to talk about. And again, if you want a reminder that there is really some evil people out there in the world, this is what it is. A large amount of the people that come over the border, or rather, a large amount of the trafficked people in this country come over the border, unfortunately. There is a lot of criminal activity in Central America, and unfortunately, a lot of these people are trying to escape, whether that's totalitarian governments or these drug cartels that are to our south. They do get taken advantage of by people a lot. And unfortunately for them, they're just trying to get here, but the circumstances in which they get here and the way that they do that is a lot of times through other cartels. And unfortunately, those people will take advantage of you and sell you as a sex slave to other people, which is awful. Awful, awful, awful. There was a story that came out the other day, and this one's hard for me to talk about, I'll be honest. This is an 8-year-old girl. 8 years old. I would like to point that out right here. They found 67 traces of other people's DNA in her. Now, I just want to say, I really hope that this girl can find a way to live a normal life. Obviously, that's something that is incredibly, incredibly traumatizing. But it outlines this problem that we have with people flowing over the southern border, that we do see a lot of trafficked people come from over our southern border. According to the New York Times, reports of abuse, neglected, or trafficked immigrants have increased 5 times the amount that they were in 2021 over the past year and a half. Now, that is just absolutely awful. Unfortunately, this really does tie into the issue of illegal immigration. When we see these people that come through the legal ports of entry to our country, those background checks and those, the association with other organizations, those all tie into this issue. And unfortunately for these people, if they are coming across illegally, there is a high chance of them being trafficked. And again, this is why it is very, very important for people to go through the legal ports of entry of our country so that we can avoid these problems and help those people that are maybe getting taken advantage of. All right, flow of drugs. About a third of the drugs seized by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection are from the southern border. As you all know, there's a lot of cocaine cartels in South America and Central America, unfortunately. That is just a reality of the world that we live in. So, again, going through these legal ports of entry helps to vet those drugs that get into our country and destroy our people. That is not just, people coming from outside of our country. That affects, all people. Unfortunately, drugs are such a large issue in our society. We're seeing more and more people that are getting hooked on opioids and things like that. And really, it all starts with the southern border. 33% of everything that comes into this country comes over the border. That is a lot. So, again, going back to the ports of entry, that is why we need those ports of entry. That is why it is incredibly, incredibly important that people go through this vetting process before that they're coming into our country. So again, we avoid human trafficking and we avoid drugs coming into our country, both of which I think everybody can agree on are objectively bad things. All right. Now, this last one is partially the fault of the U.S. So we're going to talk about child labor. Now, you're probably looking at this video right now and you're like, Wyatt, child labor, that's a thing of the past. We don't have that anymore. We outlawed that. Well, if you're not a legal documented immigrant, unfortunately, people can take advantage of you. So this is a story from the New York Times, and it was talking about this HHS sponsorship program where people are able to sponsor some of these immigrants to help them get their green card and a work visa for them to eventually gain U.S. citizenship. Now, I think that program is a objectively good thing. I think that's a way that you can, help some of these people that have potentially crossed and don't want to be sent back. You can help them obtain a legal way to stay in the country, which is, that's a good thing. It also provides them jobs, but unfortunately, people are abusing this program. And this is like small business owners and other things like that are taking little children and are making them work for not much or not at all, like not paying them anything. And this is absolutely horrible. So the way that this HHS program works is they essentially have a customs agent that they stay in contact with to make sure that everything is going according to plan. Well, according to the New York Times, 34% of the people that are in this program after 1 month cannot be contacted. 34%! 1 of 3 people. This is insane. This is an insanely huge issue because these people do not understand their rights as a worker when it comes when they come into this country, and so they don't understand that they cannot be taken advantage of. And this is U.S. people. Again, this all ties back into the fact that these people are here illegally. They have not gone through a legal port of entry, and so this is their only way of gaining citizenship. And unfortunately, our government has shown its true incompetence when we talk about the fact that they don't know where 1 of 3 of the people that they're putting into this program are. That is absurd to me. Could you imagine if the IRS didn't know what 1 of 3 people made in a year? People would be outraged over that. This is just the one to me that is absolutely stunning. The fact that U.S. citizens are deciding that we can abuse this program is absolutely just horrible. And again, just a reminder, there are some bad people out there. There are some people that will take advantage of others, unfortunately, and do some things that the rest of us would consider awful. So, just to kind of wrap up this discussion of illegal immigration, we have to find a way to encourage people to go through the legal ports of entry as much as we can. Unfortunately, looking back, Trump's border policy, to me, seemed to be better than Biden's border policy simply because of the number of people that we had coming through. When these people know that they are not going to be accepted here as an illegal immigrant, I think that ultimately it deters some of those people that are going to come in here illegally and potentially, traffic people or bring in drugs or get taken advantage of. It allows them, it makes them pursue the legal way of entry into this country instead, which for everyone is just a good thing. These people are able to be educated in their rights here as under U.S. laws, which is a good thing. They're able to understand that they have a right to get paid a certain amount, and as well as that, we do have some government programs set up to help these people and make sure that their adjustment is, a good one into the United States. So when we talk about illegal immigration, it's not an objectively bad thing. I mean, the media really truly likes to spin this as a good or a bad thing, when objectively it's not bad that people are coming into this country with the hopes for a better life. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we have the stability and can control the chaos so that we can allow these people to be successful U.S. citizens here in our country and obtain, that American dream that we all seek on a day-to-day basis. And so I'll close with this. When it comes to illegal immigration, just make sure that you keep an open mind about it. And remember that ultimately these are people, and we as human beings should care about each other. Regardless of background or, ethnicity or what each other believes, we are here to help each other. And so, at the root of all of this is the human aspect of it. So don't forget that we are all humans, and we do need to care about each other. I'm Wyatt Ramsey. This is Unqualified Independent Podcast, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for listening.